The first reading of the Local Government Auckland Council Amendment Bill number 2.
At the last debate, Denise Roach was speaking and has 7 minutes remaining if she so desires. Denise Roach.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When we were interrupted, I was talking about the responsibilities that local boards had under the transitional arrangements of the Auckland Council and what they will be given permanently. And they include community engagement, preparing local board plans, monitoring the local board agreement and preparing local bylaws, although not agreeing them. They're also directly responsible for negotiating the standards of services delivered locally, identifying and communicating the views of local people on regional strategies, policies, plans and bylaws to the governing body, providing local leadership and developing relationships with the governing body, with the community, with community organisations and special interest groups in their area. They also have to provide input into CCO plans and initiatives and any additional responsibilities given to them by the governing body. In most part, local boards in Auckland have been fulfilling their roles well, although where I live on Waiheke Island, there is concern that the local board is neither engaging effectively or advocating strongly enough on issues that our community holds dear. One of the latest issues is the decision of the local board to allow Auckland Transport to reopen a 750-metre piece of road to two-way traffic after a 3-year period of it being closed to vehicles and utilised as a safe walking, cycling and horse riding route and a safe route for children to get to school. The community, sadly, has become incredibly divided on the issue, and despite the discovery that the local board had made a decision based on information from Auckland Transport that the Esplanade Road would not get maintenance that it desperately needed if the local board continued to keep it closed to vehicle traffic. And it desperately needs this maintenance because otherwise this road's going to fall into the sea. So anyway, most of the community is quite opposed to opening it to two-way traffic. And so far there's been a public meeting, a festive fun day and walk around the Esplanade. There's been a couple of surveys and the issue is still dragging on. The one member on the local board out of 5 who has advocated for a more reasoned approach or a compromise has been sidelined and shut down. However, since we live in a democracy, the other board members will continue to be challenged on their decision-making by our feisty community, and the decision will be remembered, no doubt, in this year's elections. Local decision-making and local control, even if it's messy, even if it goes badly, it's the heart of local government, and it's prudent to remember that this was one of the key issues during the Royal Commission on Auckland Governance. I think we forget that there was a Royal Commission that received thousands of submissions on what was then the prospect of changing the shape of Auckland, amalgamating 8 councils into one body. And of those thousands of submissions, nearly a quarter were from the Hauraki Gulf, including Waiheke Island. So that's from about 0.8% of the entire region's population. And I'm still proud of the fact because it highlights just how seriously our community takes local government. The other thing that it's prudent to remember is that the legislation that created the super city actually ignored quite a lot of what the recommendations were from the Royal Commission. We never did get our Māori seats on council. And we should also remember the mad haste which this government and their axman, or should I say act-man, the then local government minister, Rodney Hyde, went about with amalgamating the 8 councils, which meant that the democratic rights of Aucklanders were simply ignored. Until the latest attack on local government with the changes to the Act this year, other councils have at least had the ability to have a vote on whether they would amalgamate or not. And we've seen that in Nelson and we've seen that in the Hawke's Bay area. But then this government is hell-bent on emasculating local government and local democracy. They started with Environment Canterbury when they sacked the elected councillors and appointed commissioners, and they perpetuate that lack of democracy by taking away the rights of Cantabrians to hold elections for regional councillors until 2016. We've seen the erosion of local democracy in the housing accord, which ran roughshod over the RMA and the consenting process, and it overrides Auckland Council's unitary plan preferences for a compact city. It's also evident in the appointment by the government of the hearings panel who will be hearing Auckland's unitary plan. We've seen it in the RMA reforms, and we've seen it as recently as 2 nights ago, where the government delivered themselves the power to wrest control of ratepayers' money that is allocated towards transport with the Land Transport Management Amendment Act. This bill, at least, is fairly innocuous. It allows local boards to carry on their good work of representing their communities, of advocating for their communities, which, in an environment where the rules are constantly changing from this government, it becomes increasingly difficult. I applaud their efforts. They work very, very hard, and we will be supporting this bill.
Maggie Barry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.